When you hear about the Mafia, what comes to mind? Ruthless bosses, secret meetings, and larger-than-life power struggles. You think of powerful men, the bosses, the underbosses, the enforcers. But what about their daughters? One defended her father in public, even when the world called him a monster. Another vanished after her father was assassinated in cold blood. One embraced the spotlight, only to land in her own legal mess. And another stayed silent, never telling her story. Today we look at where they are now, the challenges they faced, and how their father's reputations shaped the lives they lead. First up is a name synonymous to mob royalty. Victoria Gotti, the mob princess turned reality star. When you're the daughter of one of the most notorious mafia bosses in history, life is anything but normal. Victoria Gotti wasn't just raised in wealth and privilege, she grew up under constant surveillance, both by law enforcement and the media. Her father, John Gotti, infamously known as the Teflon Don, was the boss of the Gambino crime family, one of the most powerful organized crime groups in America. With his flashy suits and bold personality, he became a celebrity in his own right. But behind the glitz was a dangerous world of crime, violence, and federal investigation. Despite the spotlight on her family, Victoria worked hard to create an exclusive identity. She pursued a career in writing, becoming a best-selling author with both fiction and non-fiction books, many of which were inspired by her life. But her real claim to fame came in 2004 with the reality TV series Growing Up Gotti. The show gave audiences an inside look at her glamorous lifestyle and her 3 teenage sons, quickly becoming a pop culture hit. Despite her success, Victoria spent years defending her father's name, maintaining that he was a devoted father despite his criminal past. In later years, she continued working in television, even appearing in Mob Wives and Growing Up Gotti 10 years later. Today, she mostly stays out of the public eye, but it's certain that the Gotti name is one she'll carry forever, whether she desires it or not. The next Mafia daughter didn't just inherit her father's name, she ran the family business. Marisa Merico, the British Mafia heiress who went too far. Most Mafia daughters grow up surrounded by crime, but Marisa Merico's story is one of a kind. She was raised far from the Mafia strongholds of Italy and the US, only to be pulled into the life years later. Born in England, Marisa is the daughter of Emilio Di Giovine, a high-ranking member of the 'Ndrangheta, one of the most powerful and dangerous Mafia organizations in Italy. Despite her father's ties to organized crime, she had a relatively normal childhood in the UK, far removed from the violence and secrecy of the underworld. But that all changed when she reconnected with her father as a teenager. Marisa quickly became involved in his criminal operations, running errands, laundering money, and eventually handling large sums of cash. She was deeply entrenched in the family business, helping to manage millions in illegal profits. Her loyalty to her father ultimately led to her downfall. In the early 2000s, she was arrested and charged with money laundering and fraud, serving time in prison. The experience forced her to reconsider her choices, and upon her release, she made the difficult decision to walk away from the Mafia life for good. Today, Marisa keeps a low profile, but her story is a rare example of someone who was born into the Mafia, embraced it, and then managed to escape. However, leaving the past behind isn't always easy, especially when your family's name is tied to one of the world's most feared criminal organizations. A daughter like Marisa Merico embraced the family business, but Rosalie Bonanno experienced the Mafia life from a different perspective. Rosalie Bonanno, the Mafia bride who lived to tell the tale. Some Mafia daughters are born into power, while others marry into it. Rosalie Bonanno was both. As the daughter of Joe Profaci, one of the founding members of the 5 Families of New York, she was raised in the heart of the Mafia world, but her ties to the underworld deepened when she married Bill Bonanno, the son of Joe Bonanno, boss of the Bonanno crime family. Their marriage wasn't just a union of love, it was a strategic alliance between 2 powerful Mafia dynasties. However, life as a Mafia wife was anything but glamorous. The Bonanno family was constantly watched by the authorities, and Rosalie had to endure countless police raids, arrests, and brutalities. She stood by her husband as he fought for control of the family during internal power struggles, and was even forced into hiding when things became too dangerous. Despite the chaos, Rosalie survived where many Mafia wives didn't. As the years passed, she chose to pen down her experience and wrote Mafia Marriage: My Story, a deeply personal memoir about life inside a crime family, detailing the fear, loyalty, and sacrifices that came with it. Her story is a rare look into the inner struggles of Mafia women who are constantly torn between loyalty to their families and the cost of that allegiance. While Rosalie eventually stepped away from the Mafia world, she remains one of the few insiders to publicly share her truth, giving the world a first-hand account of what it really meant to be a Mafia bride. Rosalie Bonanno stood by her husband in the Mafia world, but Linda Scarpa saw its violence firsthand as the daughter of a feared hitman. Linda Scarpa, the hitman's daughter. Linda Scarpa is the daughter of a notorious killer feared by the entire underworld. Her father, Gregory Scarpa Sr., wasn't just a regular mobster on the streets. He was one of the most ruthless hitmen in Mafia history. Known as the Grim Reaper, Scarpa was an enforcer for the Colombo crime family, personally responsible for dozens of murders. Unlike other mob bosses who kept their families away from their crimes, Scarpa intentionally pulled Linda into a world of violence. As a child, Linda witnessed brutality firsthand. Her father would leave the house and return with blood on his clothes, and she often heard whispers of revenge killings and betrayals. Their home was constantly under surveillance, and Linda lived under the constant threat of rival families seeking revenge. One of the most terrifying moments of her life came when her family was ambushed in a Mafia hit. As gunmen opened fire on their car, Linda, just a young woman at the time, had to shield her little brother from the bullets while her father grabbed a gun to return fire. It was one of the most defining moments for Linda, because it proved that no matter how powerful her father was, his sins would always put his family in danger. Years later, Linda chose to tell her story. She wrote the book, The Mafia Hitman's Daughter, exposing the dark realities of growing up in a mobster's home. She shared the fear, paranoia, and struggle of trying to live a normal life while surrounded by violence. Today, Linda continues to speak openly about the trauma of being the child of a killer, making sure the world understands the true cost of life in the mob. The next Mafia daughter chose not to engage with the Mafia world, but to take a completely, almost strange path. Rita Gigante, the daughter who chose peace over power. Growing up, Rita Gigante knew her father was different, but it wasn't until she was older that she fully understood why. Her father, Vincent the Chin Gigante, was one of the most powerful and feared mafia bosses in history. As the leader of the Genovese crime family, he controlled a vast criminal empire while famously pretending to be mentally ill, wandering the streets in a bathrobe to avoid prosecution. While outsiders saw her father as a criminal mastermind, Rita saw him as a man who ruled his world through fear. The violence and secrecy of mafia life weighed heavily on her, but then she had her own personal battles to fight. From a young age, Rita knew she was different. For a time, she felt trapped between the expectations of her father's world and the person she truly was. Rather than follow in the footsteps of mafia families that thrived on power and intimidation, she became a spiritual healer, using her experiences to help others find peace and self-acceptance. In her book, The Godfather's Daughter, Rita reveals what it was like to grow up under the shadow of one of the most feared men in organized crime. She shares deeply personal stories of family loyalty, emotional trauma, and ultimately her journey to healing. Today, Rita has left the mafia world behind, however. She actively works to transform the pain into something positive. While daughters like Rita avoided the crime world, Maria Licciardi rose to power, becoming one of the most feared women in the mafia. Maria Licciardi, the mafia's daughter who became a boss. Most mafia daughters either try to escape their family's criminal legacy or live in its shadow. Maria Licciardi didn't either. Rather, she took control. Born into the Licciardi crime family in Naples, Italy, Maria was surrounded by the brutal world of organized crime from an early age. But unlike many mob daughters, she didn't just witness the power struggles, she actually became part of them. When her brothers were arrested in the 1990s, Maria stepped in to fill the power vacuum. She became the boss of the Licciardi clan, which was a rare position for a woman in the male-dominated world of the Camorra. Under her leadership, the Licciardi family flourished. She expanded their operations in drug trafficking, extortion, and prostitution rings, solidifying her reputation as one of the most powerful female crime bosses in history. Unlike the flashy, violence-prone mobsters of the past, Maria was known for being calm, strategic, and ruthless when necessary. For years, she evaded law enforcement, building a criminal empire that made her one of Italy's most wanted fugitives. But in August 2021, after decades of power, her reign came to an end. She was arrested at Rome's Ciampino Airport, finally caught after years on the run. Even behind bars, Maria remains one of the most infamous figures in Italian organized crime history. While other mob daughters lived with the consequences of their father's choices, Maria made her own and paid the price. The next daughter on the list may not be a powerful mafia woman, but she chooses to rewrite her father's legacy if she can. Angel Gotti, the daughter who defends her father's name. While her father, John Gotti, was one of the most infamous mafia bosses in history, Angel Gotti chose to stand by him, even seeking to redefine his legacy and public image. Unlike her sister Victoria, who lived a public life, Angel has preferred a quieter lifestyle as a business owner and flip-flop designer. However, she has become well known for her strong presence on social media, particularly Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, where she actively defends her father's legacy. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Angel maintains that her father was misrepresented by the media and law enforcement, enforcement. She often clashes with journalists and critics who paint him as a ruthless crime lord. It's safe to say that a daughter will always see her father as loving and genuine, especially if that's how he raised her. After all, the bond between a father and daughter is often built on personal experiences, not the headlines or criminal records that define him to the outside world. Although Angel has largely stayed away from the spotlight, her public stance on her father keeps her connected to the Gotti name. Just like her sister Victoria, Angel may unashamedly defend her father in public, but the next sisters we're about to look into are not involved or concerned in any way about the mafia world, thanks to a father who worked hard to keep them away from it. Nicolette and Sophia Merlino, the low-profile daughters of Philadelphia's mob boss. Some mafia daughters are thrust into the spotlight, while others manage to keep a low profile. Nicolette and Sophia Merlino fall into the latter category. They are the daughters of Joseph "Skinny Joey" Merlino, the reputed boss of the Philadelphia crime family. However, little is known about them, as their father has kept them out of the public eye. As of 2011, Nicolette and Sophia were still teenagers attending private Catholic schools. Since then, they have largely remained out of the news, which is a rare feat for most children of well-known mafia bosses. Their father, despite his reputation and numerous legal troubles, has always maintained a strong public presence. Yet, when it comes to his daughters, he has done everything possible to keep them away from the shadow of his past. There are no tabloid scandals, no social media drama, and no tell-all interviews. Just a quiet, private life that stands in contrast to their father's high-profile existence. It's unclear what paths Nicolette and Sophia have taken as adults, but their absence from headlines suggests that they've successfully avoided the notoriety that often comes with being linked to the mafia world. Unlike the daughters of other mobsters who write books, appear on reality TV, or make headlines, Nicolette and Sophia seem to have successfully distanced themselves from their father's world, at least publicly. The next set of sisters, unlike Nicolette and Sophia, were active in their father's business, even to an extreme. Katia and Teresa Bidognetti, the sisters involved in Camorra's operations. For Katia and Teresa Bidognetti, the mafia was simply a way of life. As daughters of Francesco Bidognetti, also known as Cicciotto e Mezzanotte, a powerful figure in the Casalesi clan of the Camorra, they witnessed the criminal empire and actively took part in it. Unlike many mafia daughters who try to separate themselves from their father's crimes, Katia and Teresa gladly embrace the underworld and become key players in their family's extortion operations. In February 2017, Italian authorities conducted a significant operation targeting the Casalesi clan, resulting in the arrests of Katia and Teresa Bidognetti. At that time, Katia was 35 years old and Teresa was 27. Due to her pregnancy, Teresa was placed under house arrest while Katia was detained in prison. Following their father's incarceration, the sisters played active roles in the clan's operations, allegedly executing directives from their brother, Gianluca Bidognetti, who was also imprisoned. Their responsibilities involved managing extortion activities and maintaining the clan's financial interests. Authorities accused them of helping run the clan's intimidation tactics, ensuring that businesses paid protection money and that loyalty to the Camorra remained absolute. Katia and Teresa's arrests were part of a larger crackdown on the Casalesi clan, which was an effort to dismantle one of Italy's most feared crime syndicates. Their sudden downfall shows how completely different their lives ended up compared to their father, Francesco Bidognetti, who remains one of the most powerful figures in the Camorra and still orchestrates crimes from behind bars. Our next mafia daughter had it rough and fought hard to gain freedom. She, however, didn't enjoy her new life for long. Maria Conchetta Cacciola, the 'Ndrangheta informant who paid the ultimate price. Few choices are as dangerous as turning against your own world. Maria Conchetta Cacciola did just that. As the daughter of Michele Cacciola, who was associated with the formidable 'Ndrangheta in Calabria, Maria Conchetta decided to break the cycle. She became a state witness who gave crucial testimony against one of Italy's most feared criminal organizations. Maria Conchetta lived a life of trapped luxury. Though born into wealth with endless food, fine clothes, and comfort, she was never free. Her oppressive mafia family ruled her life with cruelty. She wrote letters which were found after she died, calling her life a golden cage and describing the abuse she suffered. She suffered both physical and emotional abuses. At 13, her family forced her to marry Salvatore Figliuzzi. By 15, she was a mother to the first of 3 children. For years, she buried her feelings and obeyed her family's rules, as most mafia daughters did. But eventually, she escaped after she was beaten to a pulp. For the first time, she tasted freedom. She fell in love, chased her passion, and made her own choices. Yet even as she tasted liberation, Maria Conchetta struggled to enjoy it. She couldn't bear the fact that her children were stuck with her family. Tragically, in 2011, her brave decision came with a fatal cost. Rumors and investigative reports now suggest that, in a cruel twist of fate, she was forced to drink muriatic acid to simulate a suicide. This a tragic end orchestrated by the very forces that had dominated her life. Angela Galante, Carmine Galante's daughter who lives a private life. Angela Galante was born into the violent world of the Mafia, but she never sought the power or notoriety that came with it. As the daughter of Carmine Galante, the feared boss of the Bonanno crime family, she grew up surrounded by the realities of organized crime. But despite her father's brutal reputation, Angela remembers him in a different light, and that's because her upbringing was shaped by a different side of him, the man her mother loved deeply and the father she knew at home. His public image as a ruthless enforcer clashed with the affectionate dad she saw at home, but the violence of his world eventually caught up with him. When Carmine Galante was assassinated in 1979, Angela was forced to confront the reality of her father's life and death. The murder shocked her, not because she didn't understand the risks of his position, but because he had survived for so long that she had almost believed he would never be taken down. She once recalled the moment she learned of his assassination. Angela described her father as having a God complex, believing he was untouchable until the day he wasn't. Even with all the bloodshed tied to his name, Angela saw his life as a version of the American dream, just with the wrong choices. Angela chose to step away from anything Mafia-related. She has lived a quiet life, avoiding the spotlight and the chaos that consumed so many others in her father's world. Next is a Drita who married the son of a ruthless Mafia boss. Drita D'Avanzo, daughter-in-law to a Mafia boss. Drita D'Avanzo's life started in the heart of the Mafia when she married into the Bonanno and Colombo families. While many might have expected her to stay true to the dark reputation of her in-laws, Drita chose a completely different route. After starring in the Mob Wives reality TV series, Drita separated from her husband and launched into the beauty world. She pursued a beauty business that allowed her to redefine her identity far away from the violence and secrecy of organized crime. Drita's tough, no-nonsense personality made her a standout on Mob Wives, where she became known for her fiery temper and explosive confrontations. Despite the drama, Drita used the show's platform to carve out a name for herself beyond her husband's Mafia ties. Beyond Mob Wives, Drita continued to build her media presence. She revealed on The Tomorrow Show with Kevin Undergaro that she was working on a spin-off series of her own. Over the years, she's made appearances on shows like Celebrity Ghost Stories and Watch What Happens Live, further solidifying her place in pop culture. However, breaking away from the past wasn't as easy as launching a new business. In 2019, she and her husband, Lee D'Avanzo, were arrested on federal weapons charges after police found firearms in their Staten Island home. While Lee, a known mob associate, took the brunt of the charges, Drita also faced legal scrutiny. The charges against her for the criminal possession of drug paraphernalia and firearms were, however, dropped. Next is mob daughter, who also became a reality TV star. Karen Gravano, the mob princess who turned family scandal into reality TV. Karen Gravano was born into one of the most infamous Mafia families in New York. She is the daughter of Sammy the Bull Gravano, the Gambino family underboss who turned state witness. Her world crumbled when her father testified against the Mafia, sending dozens of mobsters to prison. Karen, once a Mafia princess, became the daughter of a snitch, which is an unforgivable label in the underworld. In 2011, she became one of the breakout stars of Mob Wives, a reality show that pulled back the curtain on the lives of women connected to the Mafia. On the show, she spoke openly about the impact of her father's choices, the betrayals, and the struggles of growing up with Mafia ties. However, Karen didn't stop at reality TV. She also wrote Mob Daughter, a candid memoir that gave readers an unfiltered look at her life growing up in a crime family, the complicated relationship with her father's legacy, the fallout that followed, and how she's tried to build her own identity. Today, Karen continues to build her media presence and live a somewhat quiet life. Meanwhile, another woman, Toni Marie Ricci, also found herself linked to the mob world. Although she made a few appearances on screen, she stayed mostly behind the scenes, dealing with her own challenges far away from the cameras. Toni Marie Ricci married into the Mafia, then helped take it down. Toni Marie Ricci's life took a dramatic turn when she married Michael "Mikey" Scars DiLeonardo, a high-ranking member of the Gambino crime family. At first, she lived the glamorous lifestyle that came with being a mob wife. She enjoyed wealth, luxury, and status, but beneath the surface, things were far from perfect. Her husband's deep ties to the Mafia meant constant surveillance, paranoia, and violence. When Mikey Scars turned government informant, it was a betrayal that shook the Mafia world. But for Toni Marie, it was an opportunity to break free. She divorced him and built a life on her own terms. Despite staying away from the mob world, she hasn't completely avoided the spotlight. In 2012, she shared her story on the television series I Married a Mobster, appearing in an episode titled Scarred for Life. She later featured in Mafia Women with Trevor McDonald, where she spoke about the realities of being married to a mob. She also wrote Scars of a Real Mob Wife, a book that dives deeper into her personal experiences. For those curious about her first-hand account, Toni Marie has also given interviews, including an appearance on Late Night with Johnny P, where she openly discussed her past and the lessons she learned. Unlike Toni, the next Mafia boss's daughter loved and enjoyed the spotlight. Renee Graziano, reality TV star and Mafia daughter. Renee Graziano grew up in the Mafia world. She lived it in full color with all the chaos, privilege, and heartbreak that came with it. As the daughter of Anthony Graziano, the powerful consigliere of the Bonanno crime family, Renee was born into a life where loyalty meant everything, and silence was the golden rule. Renee, however, broke that rule in a way no one saw coming. On VH1's Mob Wives, she gave the world an unfiltered look at what it meant to be raised in a Mafia family. She shared the raw, emotional struggles that came with it. Behind the scenes, however, Renee struggled with addiction and deep emotional wounds from a life spent in the Mafia's orbit. The pressure of family expectations, personal betrayals, and the weight of her father's reputation took a toll on her. Despite it all, Renee built a strong media presence, refusing to let her struggles get the best of her. She starred in reality TV, showed up on interviews, and constantly posts on social media. Renee is determined to turn her pain into a platform and become a voice for women who had lived in the Mafia world. While Renee's life is an open book, Giulia Francese's is much more private but no less complicated. Giulia Marie Francese, the daughter who exposed the Mafia's dark side. Giulia Marie Francese grew up surrounded by the wealth and influence that came with being the daughter of Michael Francese, a former Colombo crime family captain. Despite the privilege she enjoyed, her childhood was traumatic. She constantly lived in fear, instability, and violence. The public saw her father as a charismatic gangster who made millions through gasoline tax scams, while Giulia was faced with the reality of being the child of a man whose life revolved around crime and secrecy. For many years now, Giulia has starred in different movies, including Dance Angels, The Muppets, and Born in Blood. She has also been vocal about the psychological toll the Mafia world took on her. She has equally spoken candidly about the emotional weight of growing up with a man like her father. Some glamorize the Mafia life and identify with it on TV, but Giulia refuses the attention or the desire to build a media empire. Instead, her story exists in pieces through interviews and small public appearances. Michael Francese, on the other hand, has built a new life as a motivational speaker and born-again Christian, and he has constantly shown on social media how much love he has for his daughter Giulia. Recently, Giulia shared photos of her engagement with Tyler Schimpf, a fitness coach. Next, we look at Constance Castellano, who, unlike Giulia, chose to disappear completely from the spotlight after her father's assassination. Constance Castellano, the Castellano princess. As the daughter of Paul Castellano, the former boss of the Gambino crime family, Constance Castellano was born into a life of privilege, power, and danger. She was loved and protected by her father, but when he got assassinated in a brutal hit outside Sparks Steakhouse in 1985, everything changed. Her life turned upside down. Ever since, Constance retreated from public view, avoiding the media frenzy that followed her father's death. While her siblings have been mentioned in various accounts of the Castellano family, little is known about Constance's life after that tragic night. Some say Constance's silence speaks louder than any tell-all memoir could. Even within mob history circles, she's a mystery. It's obvious that she's made a deliberate choice to keep her memories locked away rather than broadcast them. In the few rare glimpses into Constance's life, she appears as a woman who has quietly built herself over the years. Rumor has it that she still keeps a box of old family photographs and letters. Whether out of fear, loyalty, or a desire for a normal life, Constance has remained one of the most elusive figures connected to the Gambino legacy. Last on the list is Jean Bruno, a Mafia boss's daughter, who, like Constance, has kept her life hidden from the public. Jean Bruno, the quiet life. After a Mafia upbringing, Jean Bruno grew up in South Philadelphia, enjoying the luxuries that came with being the daughter of a powerful mob boss. Her father, Angelo Bruno, known as the Gentle Don, led the Philadelphia crime family with a preference for diplomacy instead of violence. Despite his attempts to shield his family from his criminal activities, Jean's life was inevitably impacted by the underworld. In 1980, Angelo Bruno was assassinated outside his Philadelphia office. This was amid a power struggle within the Philadelphia mob. His moderate approach and reluctance to use overt violence had won him respect, but it also left a power vacuum when he was killed. Some mob insiders believed his soft-handed leadership made him vulnerable, and rival factions sought to take control of his empire by eliminating him. This internal conflict ultimately led to his gunning down. As expected, the unfortunate death of her father profoundly affected Jean and her perception of the Mafia world. Rather than capitalizing on her family's infamy or stepping into the public eye, Jean decided to disappear from it, like it never even existed. Jean's story is told more through what she doesn't do than what she does. There are no sensational reality shows, no explosive memoirs, just the quiet decision to live life like a regular woman. These profiles capture very different responses to a notorious legacy. Some embraced their background, while others fought hard to redefine themselves. There's still a lot of hidden history waiting to be discovered. Tap the cards on your screen to explore more gripping tales from the underworld.